Hello and welcome to Saltwire Today for Monday, February 13th. I'm your host, Kate Walker. A snowfall warning has been in effect for Halifax today. It's already underway and we could see up to 25 centimeters in HRM with strong winds. The snow is expected to taper to flurries overnight and the municipal parking ban has been put in place. There's potential for blowing snow in tomorrow morning's commute. For more on what's to come in Halifax, let's check in now with our weather specialist, Alistair Alders.
Thanks, Kate. Well, the question all weekend has been, will this storm even impact Nova Scotia? At one point it was going to, then it wasn't, then it was again, and yes, indeed, it will be impacting Nova Scotia, at least most of the province, and that does include here in Halifax, where we'll likely get into the brunt of this system. We will have snow around this evening. The snow continues into the overnight, however, does taper off to just a few lingering flurries by the Tuesday morning commute. In total here in Halifax, 15 to 20 centimeters most likely. However, I am watching that we could see pockets of 20 up to 30 centimeters depending on how the storm tracks. This is becoming more likely. Certainly 10 to 20 centimeters at the very least, but watching for 20 up to 30 centimeters here in Halifax. And winds will gust from the northeast over to the north, 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. Some gusts up to 70 along the coast. So there will be reduced visibility this evening into the overnight hours, and then conditions do improve on Tuesday morning. Now, the good news is that conditions do improve in time for the commute, but will the snow all be cleared away? That is the big question. So travel could be tricky tomorrow morning in Halifax and for much of the province. Now, in terms of what other areas can expect, it's going to be different depending on where you are, and I will break it down with your full weather timeline coming up in just a bit. Kate.
Thank you, Alistair. And Alistair will be back in the weather section with a provincial timeline on the snowfall. Police are investigating a shooting that happened last night in Halifax. Around 7:30, police were called to a shooting in the area of the 2400 block of Gottingen Street, where they found a man who had been shot. Police say he was taken to hospital with what are believed to be life-threatening injuries. A number of streets in the area were closed but have since reopened. There's no word on any suspects or the victim's current condition. The evidence portion of William Sandison's first-degree murder trial is over. The jury went home today after hearing evidence from a former drug dealer, Jordan McEwen, called by the Crown to rebut some of the testimony Sandison gave last week. The 12 jurors, 6 men and 6 women, will return to Nova Scotia Supreme Court in Dartmouth on Wednesday when lawyers will make their closing arguments. The judge said he plans to begin his final instructions Wednesday and finish Thursday before sending the jury out for deliberations. 30-year-old Sandison admitted last week that he shot and killed fellow Dalhousie University student Taylor Sampson during a drug deal on the night of August 15, 2015, but claimed he acted in self-defense. Sandison said he carried Sampson's 6'4" body out of the apartment in a duffel bag and dumped his remains in the Salmon River, a tidal river that runs near his family's farm in Lower Truro, the next morning. A Nova Scotia Police Review Board hearing was held in Truro today regarding a complaint filed by the father of Dylan Ehler, who went missing in 2020. The complaint touches on how the Truro Police Service has handled the case. Saltwire's Brendan Creamer has the details.
The Nova Scotia Police Review Board, officers of the Truro Police Service, and the family of missing Dylan Ehler gathered at the Best Western in Truro on Monday to review a complaint submitted by Jason Ehler, the father of the missing boy. Dylan Ehler went missing on May 6, 2020 at the age of 3. It is suspected by police investigators that Dylan had fallen into Leper Brook, where they had found a pair of rubber boots belonging to the boy. Ehler took to the stand this morning to discuss what he saw as a poor response from the Truro Police Service on the day his son went missing. In his testimony, Ehler argued that the police response was too slow, stating that they had no search dogs until after 3 p.m. that day, and that Ehler himself had to knock on doors to see if he could locate his missing son. Furthermore, he criticized the fact that no criminal investigation had been undertaken, with the police service treating it like a search and rescue. He also said police denied aid from several services sourced from Ehler. Records presented by the police service's legal counsel show that police, after receiving the initial call at 1:24 p.m., were investigating the area within the hour. They also contended with Ehler's statement of when the dogs arrived, with the report noting that they were on scene at 2:25 p.m. Ehler denied this. The Police Services Council also said that the Truro Police Services were working in conjunction with several organizations within the first 4 days of the investigation. Ehler also criticized the police service for a lack of communication. The review is expected to go on throughout the week, with more witnesses being brought in as it continues. This is Brendan Creamer in Truro with the Saltwire Network.
Organizers are getting ready to host over 10,000 people in Halifax this summer for the North American Indigenous Games. It will be a celebration of culture and sport, and preparations are now underway. Saltwire's Jen Taplin has the details.
The North American Indigenous Games are a cultural and sport event that will take over Halifax this summer. The event, that was postponed in 2020, is about double the size of a Canada Games competition.
This summer you can expect 5,000 Indigenous youth to overtake Halifax, Dartmouth, and all of the HRM, including Millbrook First Nations. There'll be sport, culture, everything included in one spot, and just a great celebration of sport and culture together.
This is the first time the Games are being hosted on the East Coast, and there is a lot of excitement for it.
There'll be over 5,000 Indigenous youth, but also if you top that with cultural performers, spectators, volunteers, we'll have over 10 to 15,000 people that will be involved, looking at an economic forecast of 20 to 25 million of new GDP into the economic impact here in Halifax.
It's also the first time cultural and sporting events will be equal. Except for the opening ceremonies, everything is free for the public.
There's so many cultural elements of the games. Our goal is to have 50% sport, 50% culture. So you'll be seeing culture at the Commons with the Cultural Village, celebrations on the waterfront and in Dartmouth Crossing, but also across all the sporting venues, from things that athletes are wearing to the pre-game dances, to music, to song, to language. Everywhere you will see culture.
There will be 47 venues across the city, with the archery taking place in Millbrook First Nation. The games are July 15th to 23rd. In Chibuktuk, I'm Jen Taplin for the Saltwire Network.
Time now for the Atlantic Sports Wire, presented by Scott Squires.
The Maritime Women's Basketball Association had a very successful inaugural season last year, and they're just a couple of months away from launching Season 2. Joining me is the commissioner of the league, Tasia McKenna. Tasia, thanks for being here. What can you tell us about Season 2? I know it's a few months away, but what details can you give us?
Yeah, I can let you know that we're expecting to have the same 6 franchises returning for year 2, with a kickoff date tentatively scheduled for May 6th and 7th, likely out of New Brunswick. We'll be looking at that tournament style structure once again. So really excited to know that we have the same folks back working with us, and we've had some really positive meetings as well, talking about, what can we learn from last year and move into this year, and then what new additions can we add. So obviously there's been some discussion around how can we better support the work that our organization is doing. So currently looking to hire an executive director part-time for us for the next 6 months. So if anyone's interested, throw your resume our way. Our email address is mwba.league@gmail.com. You can send an email there to ask some more questions about at least the executive director position, or if you're looking to learn a little bit more about franchises or who to reach out to, you can certainly reach out to us through that email.
Tasia, it's great to see you. Thanks for taking the time to chat. Really looking forward to Season 2 for the Maritime Women's Basketball Association.
Thanks so much for having me.
In Halifax, I'm Scott Squires for the Atlantic Sports Wire.
Thank you, Scott. On to weather now. To see what's coming up in the forecast, we're going to check back in now with our weather specialist, Alistair Alders.
Hi again, Kate. Well, this is going to be one of those storms where the track shifting 50 or 100 kilometers would really make a huge difference in the overall forecast. Models are starting to solidify on what we can expect, and it looks like the heaviest snow will be along the Atlantic coast of Nova Scotia. Take a look at the weather timeline. We'll play this out. This includes wind gusts too, so you can see just how windy it will be this evening into the overnight hours. We have periods of snow along the Atlantic coast of Nova Scotia, moving into eastern Cape Breton, and as we go through the evening into the overnight hours, snow will continue. Now, this snow likely to at least make it as far north as Antigonish and Pictou counties, and likely into Truro, but in a line from, say, Pictou, Truro, southwest into Yarmouth, this is where the snow will start to taper off to flurries and almost be a non-event. As we go through the overnight hours into early Tuesday morning, you can see it's relatively a fast mover. The snow clears out of western areas by the time you wake up on Tuesday morning, and the remaining snow clears out of eastern mainland Nova Scotia and Cape Breton during the early to mid-morning on our Tuesday. Now we'll look at the snowfall outlook. You can see that the highest amounts are expected along the Atlantic coast of Nova Scotia, where a general 10 to 20 centimeters certainly forecast, but I am watching for areas of 20 to 30 centimeters, especially from the South Shore through Halifax along the eastern shore and into eastern Cape Breton. So we do need to keep an eye on that. That's where we'll likely see the highest amounts, and then they drop sharply as you move northward. 5 to maybe 10 centimeters in Truro. If it moves a bit further north, could see up to 15. And then through parts of the Annapolis Valley, especially the closer you are to the Bay of Fundy into Cumberland County, this is likely just a trace to 5 centimeters. If the track shifts north, we would see more snow, but generally not going to be a big story for you. And you saw there on the timeline the wind gusts, which will be from the northeast over to the north, 30 to 50 kilometers per hour, with some gusts of 50 to 70, especially along the Atlantic coast. So there will be reduced visibility with this system during the evening hours into the overnight. So do take care if you have to be out on the roads this evening. And early tomorrow morning too, I do expect travel will be tricky for some as the cleanup begins. So just take your time as you make your way out. And of course, as I've been mentioning, it would only take a small shift to change this entire forecast. I'm watching it all very closely. We have updates on the weather section of saltwire.com and as well on my social media feeds. Kate.
Thank you, Alistair. That's all for now. For more extended video and full online articles, stay tuned to saltwire.com. And you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm your host, Kate Walker. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.